Happy Sunday morning, everyone. It is our third Sunday of the month, which makes this our other talk. This is a great opportunity for folks who can't join us at our usual time to join us. So I'll get into that in a moment. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nor Kyle, and I am your host this morning.
And I am her faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Yeah, so here we are once again. Thank you so much to you all for being here. Whether you're here live on Zoom with us or watching on the replay. What are we talking about this morning, Mushtaq?
This morning, we are going to be talking about a section of a book called Fihi Ma Fihi, which means sort of in it, what is in it. It is what it is. It is a book of the lectures and teachings of Jalaluddin Rumi. Yeah, everybody knows Rumi's poetry, but this is prose, and it was collected during Rumi's lifetime by his students. They wrote down his discourses, which is what it's called in English usually, the discourses of Rumi, and published or passed around after his death so that people would have his direct teachings.
Hmm.
And it is a whole different animal than the Masnavi or the Divani Shamsi Tabriz or the books that people are most familiar with.
And yet it still sounds like him.
Yeah,
It's got his flavor, his earthiness, his he has this direct quality about him.
yeah. And it tends to be somewhat poetic, even though it's
Hmm.
prose. Uh,
Yeah.
that's in part the language because Farsi is an inherently poetic language. Uh, but yeah, it's a good book. And it just happened that this week, Mert, who should be here but is not, so I'm assuming that he's stuck at work or something, published an excerpt from it. And I looked at it and went, damn, there's our talk for this Sunday. And here we are. And we are going to do a talk on Rumi's views of the work, literally the work.
Yep. So before we go any further, of course, we invite you to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already for more conversations like this. And if you enjoy this particular one, like our video, leave a comment, let us know what came up for you and if it inspired any questions or answers even that you might like to share with us. And we have all kinds of links in our description that will lead you to our Facebook group, the Nine-Sided Circle Forum, or you can join our email list, which I always recommend in these strange, unpredictable times, since it's one of the easiest ways for all of us to stay connected. And if you'd like to do a one-on-one or a two-on-one, we have a link for that for, a reasonable fee because that allows us to connect directly with you and give you our undivided attention so that we can support you in the work as we'll be talking about today. But if you'd like to support us just in general, we always welcome that and deeply appreciate it. We have some links for donations also in the description below. So I'll leave it at that. I don't think we have any news updates, do we, Mushtaq?
No,
Really?
not
Not
really.
currently. Yeah. So thanks for listening, and let's get back to talking about Rumi and what he calls the work, which I think we'll find familiar.
Yeah.
Hmm. So
So,
how did this topic come up, Mushtaq?
well, like I said, Mert published this little passage from the book.
Yeah, he
And
posted it in the Facebook group, the
yeah,
forum, for
and I
everyone to
looked at it and
see.
said, this is a perfect thing to talk about because
Yeah.
it's not like the idea of the work is new
Hmm.
or unique to any one group. And to understand, where are we? Let me find it.
Yeah, take a moment. Let me know if there's anything I can help you find. So
Yeah,
I'll,
I'm looking at the Farsi right now,
right.
and Mara Amir Parvana Gofte Asal Amal Ast, which means the Emir said to Rumi, uh, the root, the foundation is Amal. I said, Rumi speaking, where are the people of Amal, the seekers of Amal, so that we may show Amal to them? As things are now, you are a seeker of speech. You have set your ear to to hearing something, and if we do not speak, you become weary or displeased. Because a seeker of Amal, become a seeker of Amal, so that we may show it. In the world, we are looking for a man or a woman to whom we may show Amal. Since we do not find a buyer for Amal, but we do find a buyer for words, we occupy ourselves with words. And what do you know of Amal? Since you are not one since you are not one who acts, you cannot know it. Through action, Amal can be known. Through knowledge, knowledge can be understood. Through form, through meaning, meaning.
Mhm.
Yeah, through form, you understand form. Through meaning, you understand meaning. Since this is the road, since this road, there is, since on this road, there is no traveler and it is empty, then if we are on this road and in Amal, how will they see? After all, this Amal is not prayer and fasting. These are the forms of Amal. Amal is an inner meaning, an inward reality. From the cycle of Adam to the cycle of Mustafa, that's Muhammad, prayer and fasting were not in this form. Yet Amal was present. So this is the form of action. Amal is the meaning within the human being. Just as they say, the medicine worked, there is no visible form or action, there is no visible form of Amal appears. Rather, it is meaning and effect within it. And as they say, that man is an agent of such and such in the city. They do not see some outward form. Rather, because of the affairs connected with him, they call him an agent. So action is not what people think it is. They imagine that action, or amal, is the outward appearance. If a hypocrite performs the outward form of amal, does it bring him any benefit? Since within him there is no reality of truthfulness and faith. If you like, I can also make, uh, actually, no, we'll stop there. So we have that idea. That's what Rumi said. And I read this without translating Amal. It's an interesting word. It can mean uh,
It can mean. action, practice,
Doing.
deed,
Yeah.
doing, yeah, working.
Yeah. And so to translate it as the work is, to me, perfectly reasonable. Wael, what do you think? It's your language.
Yeah, how would you, I want to hear how you might pronounce it as well. I'm gonna put the words in the chat.
You're talking about the word ML,
Yes.
correct? So,
Yes.
so for me, ML directly translates to hope, but I get the feeling uh, there's layers to that word.
Yeah.
Um, Hope can be superficial, and hope can be based on some substance. It seems to me that this kind of ML is a far more a deeper in substance than just surface level hope and wishing. It's more indicative of a hope that comes it's closer to the word faith in the sense that I understand faith as we do the work and then the rest, there's no more work to do. And whatever happens, happens after having me done all the work. It feels more like that.
Yeah. And in the Adhan, for the morning prayer, they add that line. Do you remember the line?
Hold on. So if it's ML or AML, so I'm
Amel. Yeah, it's an ayn, not
Yeah,
so
yeah.
not hope, not hope. So
yeah.
عمل
And
usually work. هيا
mm,
in the adhan, it's هيا على خير العمل.
Yes.
And amal is directly translated as work.
okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
so that's what that word means.
That's yeah, RM is saying you know, the word for hope with the meaning of hope starts with an aleph. So
Yeah. And this is the ayn and uh just my bad pronunciation.
so I mean, I knew we were going to struggle.
Yeah.
That's because it's not our first language, so it's always great to get help and clarification. Awesome. Yeah. So Rishabh says, how would you pronounce it, Rishabh?
So I would say call it ʿamal, but I don't know if that's the same word. But Urdu and Hindi are sister languages, like they
Yeah.
are related. So
Hmm.
I was just trying to guess if it's the same word. So we call it �amal.
Yeah,
Like,
it's the same word.
And
oh,
The,
you
the
said it
problem,
means to put to practice, right?
yeah,
Or to put
yeah, right,
something into practice.
right.
yeah. Yeah, the struggle that we have is in Urdu and Persian and Turkish. There is no ayn sound. There is just the standard a. So um, an Arab speaker is looking for the pharyngalized a, as opposed to the what is it, the palative a? I forget.
Mhm.
Uh,
So amal.
yeah,
We'll go with that.
Ahmad. Yeah. It's a sound that English speakers struggle with because it does not exist in
Yeah.
English.
So thank you, everyone. That was very
Yeah.
helpful.
So it's the idea of work, the idea of a doing. Um, come to the best work, come to the best of deeds, that sort of thing.
Uh,
So Rumi is saying that ʿamal, the work, is not mere behavior. It's not just piety. It's not a religious observance. It is the inner, effective, transformative doing. And Rumi makes the distinction in this that prayer and fasting are forms of amal. Amal itself is the inner reality. And this is the hinge of our whole talk here, is that outer form does not equal inner work. Performance does not equal transformation, and observance does not equal change. Yeah, he says prayer and fasting are not ʿamal, are not action, are not the work. These are forms of the work. The work is an inward reality. And Gurdjieff made the same distinction. He may have read the same book. We don't know. But he makes the distinction between outer religious or moral observance and actual inner labor. And this is the distinction that Rumi is making here. Yeah, yes, Ian.
Yeah, I was just going to comment that I seem to remember from when I read the Mathnawi many decades ago that quite a number of the stories in that essentially make the same point.
Yep.
Um,
Only they say it prettier.
yeah, there's one that I sort of remember vaguely that he says he would much rather be the person who goes to prayers, I guess, with the right feeling in his heart than the person who just goes and recites them.
Yeah. Rumi's big question is, where are the people of ʿamal? Where are the people of the work? He says people come wanting words, not the work. And if he stopped speaking, people would be disappointed.
And this makes sense in context because, as we know, even today, everyone's obsessed with his poetry and the music that goes along with the poetry, and there's a lot of beauty and nurturance in that. But it wasn't all of him. It wasn't all he had to give, and he found people were coming to him saying, "Give me that. I want the goodies, the fun stuff."
Yeah. Or, as we'd like to say, entertain me.
Entertain me. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Dazzle me.
yeah, Rumi's point here is we like spiritual language. We like being near the fire. Everybody likes being near the fire, but nobody wants to be the kindling for the fire. And uh, people want it. The introduction to the work is what people want. They want the uh, 12 convenient principles with good typography. And Rumi states within this passage that he is searching for students of ʿamal, students of the work. But he only finds seekers of words, so he occupies himself with the words. And here is one of the key notes in this passage. Rumi says, ʿamal can only be known by ʿamal. It's experiential, it's not conceptual. And we see this all the time with, all you need is a catalog of spiritual classes here in the Bay Area. And you will have people who can tell you everything about the work. They can discourse on the work for hours and lots of beautiful words, and they will charge you a pretty penny for it. But there is no doing of the work. which sounds arrogant of me to say, but I stick by it. Yeah,
Yes, Rishabh says, get enlightened in a 7-day workshop.
yeah, that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's the trend right now, but in the past, Silicon Valley has been, super big on all of this, you know, galaxy brain type stuff where you have all these events going on where people are trying to expand their horizons and get creative through enlightenment so they can create cool tech stuff, and they'll spend tens of thousands of dollars to access the
Hundreds
kinds
of
of,
thousands of dollars.
yeah, to get at people who are willing to manipulate them into some kind of quasi transformation. I say quasi because it's not going to stick because they're not the ones putting in the effort and the time to not only earn that, but to make it stick, to make it lasting, to make it something that actually moves them inside in a meaningful way. They've surrendered to nothing except, you know, the guru who wants their dollar.
Yeah, and I don't think they do it anymore, but they used to do these things here in the Bay Area called enlightenment intensives, where you would pay a bunch of money to sit in a room with other people who would just sit and ask you, "Who are you?" over and over again for hours for $2,000 a pop.
It's a good gig if you can get it.
Yeah. So the thing to realize, and we'd have to go on in the discourse to get to this part, is that Rumi doesn't dismiss words entirely. He says he is speaking because that's what people are able to receive. He even compares himself to a merchant selling what the market can bear. Um, and in this, he is both compassionate and slightly exasperated.
Yeah, you can feel that
Yeah.
in the way that he's speaking here.
Yeah. And so he is not endorsing wordiness, he is meeting a demand. And in that demand, he is hoping uh, to run across somebody who is willing to look deeper. Rumi says in the text, he speaks poetry because he does not want to distress people. And like a merchant, he provides what people are ready to buy.
I think we can think of this as meeting people where they're at.
Yeah,
And also he is trying to be of use. He's trying to be of service, and this is the service that people are requesting. This is what they're coming to him for, and he doesn't want to disappoint them. And he hopes to find, you know, as I believe he says elsewhere, the crack where the light can get in, right?
yeah. And so Rumi is not anti-talking. He is anti-confusing talking with realization.
Hmm.
So we would say Rumi is not against podcasts. He's against the belief that listening to 600 hours of podcasts is in itself enlightenment.
Or is the work,
Yeah.
period. That is not, no. I mean, even if you sit and listen to every single video we've ever done, you're not doing the work. You have to actually do something on your own part of your own volition, perhaps involving something that we've shared with you. Wonderful. But
Yeah.
it's a little bit more than just passive ingestion of content. RM says, I think of it as study and practice.
Yeah, and this is why so many of our videos are built around a practice, hundreds of practices. And you don't have to do all of them. Just pick one. Yeah, and Gurdjieff said the same thing. He was, he was like, do the self-remembering, do the self-observation, learn to widen your attention, or as he says, split your attention, do the thing. And if there's any motto to this particular talk, it's do the thing. So,
Any
it,
thoughts so far
yeah.
before we go on? I mean, you guys have been chiming in, but yeah, if you want to unmute and share what's coming up for you, feel free. RM says she's working on her stop exercise practice. Bishop says, it is ironic we are talking about doing the thing.
Yes.
Yes, and as Rumi says, words are not, it is, absolutely. But enemies are not, the words are not the enemy. It's just, do we take it to that next step?
Yeah. Rumi, in the next passage after the one we read, basically says, speech is not the enemy. Speech is the fruit. Uh,
Ideally.
yeah, after criticizing those who seek words instead of ʿamal, he refuses the cheap anti-intellectual conclusion, which we must avoid. He says, speech is the fruit of the tree of action, the tree of ʿamal. Words matter when they arise from realization.
Yeah.
Empty words are inflation. Living words are transmission.
So you drink it in, you apply it, and then you have through the experiences gathered through doing something that you can share with others for encouragement, direction, the things that allow you to pass on the fruits of your experience. As
So,
much as we know, even in having said that, that words cannot get at the thing. They can only give just the vaguest taste of the thing, but perhaps that's enough to inspire us.
yeah, and Gurdjieff basically agreed with this. He distrusted borrowed speech. Borrowed speech is like just repeating the formula without any understanding at all. But precise speech can serve awakening when it comes from being rather than imitation. And we're reminded here of Gurdjieff's story of the two brothers who went around to the various monasteries and lectured on the work, and how one of them spoke beautifully, but you couldn't remember a word afterwards, and the other one spoke very plainly, but his words burrowed into you and stayed with you. And the conclusion of the monk who was talking to them was that the one brother's speech came from his ego and just touched the egos of the people listening, but the other brother, his speech came from his essence and spoke to the essence of the people. That's actually a thing, whether we know it or not.
I'm sure some days we are one and some days we are the other.
Yeah. And every tradition has its recitations. And human beings have this way of taking those recitations and turning them into just one blur of words
Mm.
that don't mean anything. You don't even think of it. And part of the problem with some, like if you're Catholic and you go to confession and you've sinned, oh no, you've sinned. So the priest forgives you your sins and then gives you penance to do. And the penance is usually reciting the rosary. You know, he'll say 10 Our Fathers and 20 Hail Marys. And you do that as punishment for your sins. This is like making a kid run every time you're unhappy with him in gym class. What happens? You learn to hate gym class. You learn to just blank out in your recitation.
I see that might be relatable to some.
Yeah. And we all know that whether it's the rosary or a wird or a dua or a bhajan or a mantra, it can tune you out. So Rumi's idea is that outer forms matter, but only as forms, only as containers for the work.
Yeah. So,
So Rumi is not abolishing practice. He is revitalizing it.
as John says, living water flows, it does something.
Yes.
It flows and transforms. Thank you, John.
Yeah. His point of view in this talk is that form is necessary, but it's not self-sufficient.
Mhm. Yeah, I find it interesting. I mean, speaking from the Islamic perspective, he mentions the time of Adam, the time of Muhammad, and how in these different periods, the forms, the rituals were different. So that's not the constant. That's not necessarily the thing that really the work hangs on, though it is a form of it, right? As you said, it is a way that it manifests, but it is not the thing. And so, even as the form changes, there's something essential about the work that is sustained regardless of the form.
Yeah.
That's just the cup to hold it in, if that makes sense.
So Rumi makes the point that ritualism without inwardness is a problem. It's an error. He also makes the point that inwardness talk without discipline is an error.
Yeah.
And we see this uh, in every tradition. People can talk a good religion. You know, we got the evangelicals here who are great at talking religion, but when it comes to feeding the poor, tend to, oh, I left my wallet at home. Or my favorite whipping boys are the non-dual bros who they have the talk down really good. But I digress. So, form isn't false, it's insufficient in and of itself. Form without inwardness becomes theater. Inwardness without form often becomes autobiographical. What do you think that means? Yes.
James.
Um, in the sense, autobiographical in the sense there's just trying to reinforce and promote your own personality, your own.
Yeah. Go and listen to various guru types. And a lot of their teaching has to do with, oh, I was a special child and I had all of these wonderful adventures and I'm different than you. And because
Yeah.
I'm different than you, I'm special and you should listen to me and do what I tell you to do. Because then if you're really lucky, you will become different too. That
That
kind of
not,
autobiographical.
that's not just with the gurus promoting their Wonder Child autobiography to sell their product. It's also with the followers who just rehash their own personal stories.
Exactly right. It
Mm,
becomes a vicious cycle.
mm.
So Rumi asked the question, why do so few seekers of the work exist? Rumi says, the road is empty. There are few travelers. And even if real work is taking place, who is there to recognize it? In a certain way, and this explains to you something about Rumi. Uh, what was it that awakened Rumi?
Shams.
That's right. Shams was what awakened Rumi. Why? What was it about Shams that made this possible?
I think it's because he shocked him. He could he exuded an energy that was undeniably true, but followed no logic. I just feel that the impact was so significant that it shattered everything apart from it, and he was never the same again. So Shams was some type of shock point.
Yes.
Hmm.
And Shams did the work. That was, to me, that was the biggest thing was both for Shams and Rumi, because Shams, when you read what he wrote about searching, he was looking for Rumi. He was looking for somebody who was willing to do the work. And Rumi didn't even know he was looking for somebody who could do the work until he found Shams. And that clicking created the space for both of them to do the work. And of course, this upset Rumi's students because rather than coming out and doing flowery discourses every day. He just locked himself in a room with shams and they did their practice. And that's a whole different thing. And one of the things that is absolutely true is that when somebody begins waking up, they long for other awake people around them. Otherwise, it is easier to fall back asleep than it is to stay awake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's one reason why I think of this community as kind of one image I hold in my mind is that imagine a whole bunch of people need to stay awake through the night. And some people are going to fall asleep at various times while others stay awake, but everyone has the capacity to gently nudge those around them so that everybody gets through it. So we're helping each other to keep the night vigil. And so for someone like Rumi and for someone like Shams, they are looking to have others to keep the night vigil with. And having found those, you know, those people in your life is a precious thing. But it also can be hard to find those people. So there is a touch of loneliness to the work.
Yeah. Rumi makes the point, nothing enters unless something inside answers. Words do not work automatically. He says, 1,000 thieves outside cannot open the door unless a thief inside opens it. Interesting. Water doesn't help a plant unless the roots thirst.
Yeah. So we have something from Board in the chat.
Yes.
He says work, āmal, can show/reveal a glimpse of a path. Then to progress along the path, one has to go back to work and be with what one does in the beginning until the form, the vessel, is conditioned to carry more work, and then we see more of the path. If we are enamored with what we see initially and take that as something that can be sustained through belief in poetry, the path will disappear and only words will remain. Beautifully put. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about here. So the problem is not the teacher or not only the teacher or the teaching. The problem is the condition of the hearer. There's an old Sufi story of a fake sheikh. He didn't know he was a fake sheikh until one day he did. And he called his Khalifa to him and said, I've just discovered that I'm full of it. And so I'm going to close up the school. Please go tell everybody, all of my students, that I'm completely full of it and I don't know what I'm talking about. And his Khalifa said, no, shh, quiet. 3 more of your students just achieved enlightenment. Sometimes it's the work of the student. It's always the work of the student, not the words of the teacher, that does the actual work. A teacher can mechanically say to you, oh, watch your breath. And if you actually watch your breath, if you do the Hoshtardam, then you will wake up whether that dude is awake or not. Because you are doing the āmal, the practice.
Mhm. And Mushtaq is referencing one of the 9 precepts of our
Yes.
tradition. And
The first of them, the foundation, the very beginning.
yes. So We have a whole playlist on that on our channel under the 9 precepts of the Kwajagan, the masters.
Now, Rumi gives us an interesting thought. He says, divine care surpasses countless strivings. Grace comes first, then struggle, then submission. Nurse the spark into a flame. Or, yeah, once you get the grace, you have to do the work. You have to blow on the fire, get the coal going. So this is Rumi's equivalent to Gurdjieff's emphasis on effort and friction. Rumi says, grace is going to touch you. It's going to go boink. And if you do nothing, the grace is worthless. When you receive the grace, that is your cue to do the work. So what might grace look like? Would you like to, Noor? Would you like to
Yes.
read what RM just wrote?
Yeah. So, RM has shared that there's something about this that hits hard for her. And she says, once you get the grace, the work.
Yeah, and that moment when it hit hard for you, that was the grace.
Mm.
And Wael is asking what number of discourse in the book is the passage from? It is from 16, discourse 16, I believe. And that's how grace comes. It's just this little flip right to the back of your head, and you go, oh, what? And then you have to do the work. So, right after this passage, Rumi discusses hope and fear. And he says faith consists of both. Hope gives energy to your effort. Without hope, you become lazy and inert. Fear is also a motivator for you. And it's not like, oh my God, God is going to beat me up. That's not the fear that we're talking about. If you want to understand the fear, it is, I don't know how much time I have to do this work.
Mm. And you can't be certain whether the outcome that you're aiming for is exactly what you're going to get. And yet,
And
yes,
yet,
and
hope
yet,
springs eternal. You go, I don't know if I'm going to be able to complete this. And yet I'm going to try. I am going to do the work.
There's a sense of drive.
Yeah. And without that, you got nothing.
Mhm. Yes, Ian. You gotta unmute. Uh,
Oops, sorry.
there you go. No worries.
Um, I was going to say that I think there's another aspect to the fear as well, which is the fear of actually falling back to sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a great one. Yes.
Yeah. But not the neurotic. We're not talking neurotic fear. We're talking existential fear here. And the fear of falling back to sleep, that's existential. Rumi, I translated as sober alarm. It's not, oh my God, the sky is falling. It's like, wow, I could die at any moment and I better get my ass in gear. But that has to be coupled with absolutely unreasonable confidence.
Unreasonable
I
confidence.
love that phrase. And the way I think of it is too much fear and you become a Puritan. You become a Wahhabi. Too much hope and you become a wellness influencer. You got to balance the two.
Hmm. Oh, geez. Okay, so we have a thought from RM, and then what has a question.
Yes,
So RM says existential fear is healthy, but not neurotic fear.
that's correct.
What L asks, so hope and fear are required to do the work?
Yes, the right kind of hope and the right kind of fear. It's like spices. You get a recipe and it says add 2 teaspoons of pepper, but it doesn't tell you what kind of pepper to add. So you may add 2 teaspoons of white pepper, which is very mild, or you might add 2 teaspoons of bird pepper, which is very, very hot. So it's the right kind of hope, the right kind of fear. And you got to get clear on that because both can lead you into weird neurotic behaviors. If you are afraid that you're going to disappoint God, you are falling into neuroses. You can't disappoint God. That's crazy. That's what mothers use to get their child to behave. Eat your peas or God will be disappointed. So that's not what we're talking about. It is disappoint yourself by not being able to complete your path. Are we making sense here?
Yeah, if anyone has any thoughts on that, whatever is coming up for you, I welcome that because you may have another way of phrasing this that may be a grace for someone out there. No pressure, but if you think of it, Brian.
Yeah. And that one quote that was read, you said something inside has to answer.
Yes.
Mm.
And the word resonance came to mind. And uh, it's like we are seeking a resonance way more than words. And when Wael mentioned how Shams was exuding the energy that Rumi felt. You know,
Hmm.
it's again, it's the resonance that we're looking for. And when you mention the non-dual bros, it's like they're saying the words, but for whatever reason, nothing inside answers to that. And I guess that's it.
Yeah, and that's exactly correct.
And the thought also comes to me that speaks to why there is no one single teacher for every single person, because it is that factor of mutual resonance that must be taken into account.
So Rumi says we are a mixture of animal and speech. And he goes on to say the greater struggle is against the armies of thought within. So when he says a mixture of animal and speech, he's talking about uh, the basic instinctual self and the lower thinking self, and that leads to the armies of thoughts within, the ruminations that we say to ourselves over and over again every day for most of our lives.
Mm, yeah. Yes, the things that we talked about as being blessings and curses.
Yes, those things.
Yeah. Oh. I before we lose this thread, RM shares in the chat, because you know how you were saying about the wrath of God. That's not the kind of fear we're talking about. Uh RM says, interestingly, when my child does not behave, I tell her, don't harm yourself, rather than Allah will be mad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And James says non-dual gossip is basically one-upmanship. So I'm sorry. I did not mean to interrupt you. Can you remind me what you were speaking about last?
You expect me to remember back that far? So Rumi ends this whole sequence with the thought of uh, the man or woman of heart as
Mm,
the end of the work. Now, when he says heart, he's not talking about what we tend to think of heart here in Western culture, which is this sloppy emotional crap that people think is somehow better than thought. It's
mm.
not that.
Is this qalb?
Yes, qalb.
So kind of like the
Well, yeah, and even beyond qalb into sir,
Mhm.
which means qalb means heart and sir means secret. So you put them together and you get the secret heart.
Yeah.
And this is not a person who is merely moral or merely learned or merely devout. Uh, and it's not self-improvement in the modern sense. It is the making, unveiling, and becoming a whole human being, the insan al-kamil.
Yeah, we talked about the completed human.
Yeah.
This is what Rumi is getting at.
Yeah. And he says in the text, the man or woman of heart is a universe. When you have seen them, you have seen all. And we have talked about this now for a few weeks in the talks, mostly laying down on the Gurdjieff side to take our nap, because that's easier for people to initially assimilate. But today we are now flipping over to the Sufi side again, because that has the deepest and most profound truths for us.
Rishabh asks a question we've been poking at the last few weeks, which is, does this Insani Kamil correspond to Gurdjieff's man number 7?
Yes, that does exactly that. And it's funny because the only way we can talk about this is in words. And the irony does not escape us here that we have just talked for over an hour with nothing but words about something that words cannot encompass. And so what do you do?
Go practice.
Yes. The trap is information without transformation, discourse without discipline, and spiritual aesthetics without sacrifice. So words matter, forms matter, grace matters, hope matters, but the work is the essential linchpin to all of it. So what do? If nothing else, sit down, feel your body, and be aware of your breath. Stay awake while doing it. If you do nothing else, that is enough to get you going. But you actually have to do the practice. Be awake in your body, watch your breath, rinse, repeat.
The experience of being awake itself is what this is all about. And you can't fake that.
And just because you wake up does not mean you're enlightened.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you look spiritual, doesn't matter if you talk spiritual. What matters is finding and using workable material for truth. And Rumi's complaint is not that people are religious, not that they have forms, but that they confuse the costume with actual transformation.
Because he was doing the forms too.
Yeah,
He's not skipping out on doing the rituals of Muslim life, but he saw that that was not the be all end all. And in fact, without the right perspective on them, they would be a trap for people.
yeah. And Rumi was a devout Muslim. He, as far as I can tell in reading everything that was ever written about him, he never missed his prayers.
Yeah.
He fasted every Ramadan.
As
He
Rishabh
gave
says,
money to the poor. He did all the things.
mhm. As Rishabh says, forms have their own beauty too.
Yeah,
They do.
especially when they become the tool for your awakening.
Exactly. Yeah. They can serve as anchors and as opportunities for return. James says you were talking about
Yeah,
the
just being
relation.
awake is not enlightenment. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So James says, but awakening will distort enlightenment far less. Yes. Should enlightenment happen?
Yeah. Enlightenment doesn't happen. You do enlightenment.
Hmm.
Think about that. I hate that word, enlightenment.
I think we've done talks on why
Yeah,
we
we've
don't
done
like it.
whole talks on that. I've done
Yeah.
whole diatribes on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's an imperfect word, but
It's what we got.
it's what we got. It's one that is familiar to people. There's a certain flavor to someone who is doing or being enlightened, and not perfect verbiage, but we we can sense it if we are at a level where we're able to do so. How would you define enlightenment?
I
Describe.
prefer,
How would you describe it?
yeah, enlightenment is what is usually meant. And it means different things in different groups and different people and all of this. I can only say what works for me. Enlightenment is the deconditioned mind. It is the ability to step away from one's conditioning and be the witness.
Mhm.
And that's, I mean, this is why I love the Yoga Sutras so much. The first two paragraphs of the first book of the Yoga Sutras is this is the teaching of yoga. Yoga is the stilling of the twistings and turnings of the mind. When the mind is still, the seer comes to its proper place as witness to what is given to it. At all other times, the seer is identified with what is being given. Yeah. Now the teachings of yoga. That in itself, right there, is the whole ball of wax, the whole 9 yards. That is enlightenment in a nutshell. The seer becomes the witness to what is given without the identification with what is being seen, without the conditioning. And then, he goes on and talks for many, many uh, paragraphs after that about how you go about doing it. But that's it. When you get that, you know what the goal is. So good stuff.
Thanks, Rishabh. Any other thoughts or questions? Hmm. Yes, James.
Gotta say, I'm finding this really gratifying because it's anchoring the notion of the work in a source other than Gurdjieff.
Yeah.
I, I, yes, I've enjoyed this immensely. I sort of pretty much agreed with everything already that we've talked about, but now it's coming from a source other than Gurdjieff. I like that, other than Mr.
Yeah.
G.
You have to realize
Yay.
that we use Gurdjieff,
Hmm. Yeah.
and that's it. We do Sufism, but Sufism is scary to people because it's those Muslim people do it. So if you do Sufism, you might end up having to pray 5 times a day or something. So we use Gurdjieff because he got 85 to 90% of what he taught from weird Sufi types by his own account. So it becomes a sectarian, a non-sectarian language. But we always bring it back to this. And the next thing you know, you're wearing a silly hat and shouting Allahu Akbar everywhere. And it's all over after that.
So, Rat, how are you doing? Nikki, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm mulling. Yeah, mulling. Um, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, no worries. Mulling is good. Rat says, all good here. Trying not to make my listening into more autobiography. And RM wants to share that she enjoys your sense of humor. I do too. That's why we hang out.
Yeah. And here I thought it was my Indiana Jones good looks.
That too.
Um, I wanted to just make a comment about what we hear about in enlightenment, and in particular, I mean, one of the things I looked into way back when was Zen, and it occurs to me that the Zen concept of Satori is this momentary flash of insight into what is essentially a riddle. Which I think is a very different thing from what we're talking about here. And I suspect, without sort of knowing this in any great depth, that that's different from, for example, what the Buddhists talk about with nirvana and samadhi.
Well, one thing that's coming to mind is we talked about moments of grace, right? I think that Satori could be considered a moment of grace. And then what happens with it after that is sort of up to you.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Hmm.
I will just add one more thing.
Sure.
One of the things from last week's talk is we had this very short um, little bit of conversation about bypassing the intellect.
Mm.
And I just want to say that I found that very, very helpful this week. It sort of kicked in while I was doing my practice on Tuesday. And I found that by keeping that in mind, I was able to stay focused for most of my practice, whereas normally I'd sort of devolve into, I mean, I can stay focused for a while, but then I'll devolve into thinking and getting into a train of thought and kind of forgetting. And I had one of the best practice sessions that I've ever had. But it's one of those things where during the week I was still able to, it was still able to be helpful, but I just sort of, my energy progressively kind of wound down a bit, and I wasn't able to to keep it up. But I think that's one of the great things about coming to these sessions is it sort of inspires me, and then you get these little nuggets that make a difference and so on. But I mean, it really does come down to what you said about consistent practice.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for following up on that, Ian. I do recall had a conversation about like let's see how it goes when we apply that, right? So thank you for sharing. And I,
Yeah, I mean, it was only like less than a minute of,
right.
of discussion, but
But it's amazing what sticks with us and what, as Brian was talking about earlier, the resonance, and RM was talking about those moments that hit us. Then we got in a conversation about grace. Those are the moments of grace that we can grab onto and see what juice they may hold for us. Thank you for sharing about that. And yes, I've been thinking about this week. I've been thinking maybe this will be what my next newsletter is about. Um, I've mentioned the practice of plugging the leaks, the energetic leaks, so to speak, the things that drain us bit by bit and cause us to lose momentum in doing the work. It's hard to do the work without the drive behind it to keep going. And what allows us to sustain that drive is, among other things, making sure that we're taking care of those things that tend to drain us, often without us even realizing. But also acknowledging that energy to do work ebbs and flows as well. So, can we take that in stride while also doing any of the little and sometimes big things that may be necessary to build a greater capacity for those times when energy is available to us? So, more thoughts on that to come. But yeah, if the work is what's important, we need to, along with that, along with doing it, protect our ability to do it. And there are many ways to do that. One of them includes seeking out others who are similarly striving so that we can inspire one another. That's one way that we can gain energy together. Yes, board.
Just going to say that's interesting because we said in the beginning that fear and hope is necessary for the work. And actually, both fear and hope might act a bit like grace. It gives that energy from the outside when it's hard to find within.
I think that's a great point. And I kind of, there is something to that coming up for me as well, but I didn't have the words to really put it the way that you put it. So thank you for crystallizing that for us, board. I agree.
And Wael has to take off, so
Be safe, well.
yes. And we should probably think about taking off too.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
unless
so
anyone has any other thoughts. Go
yeah,
ahead, Mushtaq.
the last thought. Take a week and just do your practice, whatever your practice is. If you have fancy practices, do the fancy practices. If you have just the simplest practice of paying attention to your breath, do that. Just do the work for a week and see what happens. See if it makes a difference. Don't talk about it. Don't think about it. Don't share it with your friends. Just do the work.
Mhm. Sometimes that's another way to preserve your energy is don't talk, just do. As in, don't get lost in frittering away your energy on telling people all about it. For some people, that is fueling. For others, like myself, it's better if I wait until I've already gotten started before I start discussing it with people.
Yep. And I have just switched to Brady Bunch mode.
Okay.
We are here.
All right.
James is still lurking in the shadows.
Hi, John. Do you have anything you want to share? I see you're unmuted.
No, I shared it all with the living water versus the dead water, which is a
Yeah.
tradition from the Middle East that, if your water's stuck in a cistern, it's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's flowing like a river, that's living water. And what I meant by transformation is when water flows, it transforms everything around it.
It does. Yes.
And
Yes.
but just, so it can't be contained by any standard form.
No. And it transforms just by being what it is, right? Mm-hmm. Ah, that's very
What it's meant
Tao.
to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to take the section that we have been working from the Fihi Ma Fihi, turn it into a PDF and put it up with the video in the forum for people who are in the forum.
Yeah.
So you will find it there and you can read it. It's the Arbery translation, so it's a little bit different than what we have been using because we've been pulling more closely from the Farsi.
But you'll enjoy it.
But you'll enjoy it. And just remember when you see action, translate that as the work.
Mm-hmm. So, thank you so much for being here, everyone. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your inspirations with us so that we can pass those on to anyone who's here or who's watching later. It means a lot. So, we can next week we'll be here meeting on Zoom at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, as you know. And thank you so much. For those of you who celebrate Eid, have a wonderful Eid.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when Passover is, but I hope that that's a good time too. This is a very meaningful time, painful time, but also a time that we could use some connection. So let's seek that out. All right, we can wave to each other, wave to everybody watching on the replay, and we will talk to you again soon. Bye.
Take care.